Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lighting the Way with Beth Green and friends. Well, this has been a madhouse of a day, a madhouse of a couple of days, in very good ways, a madhouse. And I want to talk tonight about the ego, our nation, and hope. Is there cause for hope? For a long time, we have felt. Oh, by the way, I'm Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks, and I'll be introducing my panel a little bit later. But in the meantime, I would like to invite anybody who's on my public Facebook page, Beth Green, the Music and the Message, or on YouTube at Beth Green TV, to feel free to comment. And we should be able to see the comments and respond to you live. You can always leave comments later. Okay, so if you have been following the news over the last, can you believe it's almost a year? We have seen a runaway freight train, our government, that has been dedicated to the ego. And we've been talking about the ego on this show. You know, how it's the ego sees everything from the perspective of me. How can I benefit myself? How can I protect myself uh, uh, and mine, my family, maybe? And, there's always some kind of a tension between the ego, which says it's all about me and short term goals. So let's make as much money as we can right now. And the heck with the planet, who cares? And on the other side, oh my God, what happens to one happens to everybody. We can't live in a world where everybody is terrified or everybody is hungry or nobody is functional, or where we have climate change that is just not being addressed, um, because we're one and we inhabit this really small place. Seems big, but it's really small. So there is that conflict, and it's also true on the individual level. Am I supposed to just worry about myself, or am I supposed to be concerned about others? So the ego always says it's about me, me, me. Okay, so now it doesn't take much analytic capacity or imagination to notice how our government has been completely dominated by the ego of a few people, the billionaires, uh, the president, the people who are in Congress who are only worrying about their own careers and who aren't worrying about the American people and all of that. And it's been pretty, don't worry about the environment, it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, there's no global warming, right? And there has been absolutely complete disregard for the highest good of all, for caring, and so on, as you well know. Well, the last day, it seems like the lid has blown up. And, it did seem for a while like they were winning, that the ego couldn't be touched. Could call it the Teflon ego, right? That no matter what you threw at it, it just bounced right off. No problem, right? The ego could commit murder in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and all the sycophants would say, "Go, ego, go," right? Well, that seems to be stopping. And, we've been talking about this for quite a while, about how there is a rebellion and a revulsion. And now it's just all hell is broken loose. What does it mean? Where is it going? I don't know. I can't be sure, but we sure should be talking about it. So, okay. I'm going to get to the Epstein files in a minute, but first I want to say that I just read, because see, things are happening so fast that I'm reading the news all the time, that there is this glacier in Greenland that is melting because of global warming, which is a hoax, as we know, right, according to the ego. And it seems like the impact of this glacier melting is going to be felt all the way to Florida because we live in one world, right? And anything we do here happens. So, I mean, didn't we see the forest fires that the smoke came across the border? You can't stop smoke from forest fires from going across borders. Borders are a human construct. Now, sometimes you have a mountain that'll stop something. That usually has to do with rain. But even then, uh, they're not really created by human beings. We can't just say, "Oh, uh, I have a house. It's $100 million house, and therefore I will allow no pollution over my house." It's absurd, right? So that was the first thing that I thought was just an example around climate change. The second thing is Judge Boasberg. I don't know if you've been following the story at all, but remember um, that all of those immigrants who were sent to El Salvador with no due process. And months ago, Judge Boasberg said, turn those planes around because that's ego. We don't have to pay any attention to the common good. We can do anything we want, whether it's legal or illegal, because we have the power, we have the force. That is a very ego thing, isn't it? So Judge Boasberg said, turn those planes around, and he was ignored. And those poor people ended up in CCOT, this horrible torture uh, uh, prison in El Salvador, totally illegally. And the Department of Justice and the administration went, nanner, nanner, who cares? And so after all this time, Judge Boasberg said, I'm going to hold you in contempt, and there will be consequences for that. But some court above him said, well, you couldn't do that. We have to put a stay on that. We have to send it back. We have to, but they didn't say that he was wrong. But they sent it back to Judge Boasberg. So now he has to start all over again. And some people thought that that they said he was wrong. But they never said he was wrong. They just said, oh, now we put a stay on this contempt procedure, but we're going to send it back to Judge Boasberg. And now he has to start all over again. But he's not stopping. So here it is. Here the ego has been running amok saying, I can do anything I want. I have hegemony over the whole planet. Whatever I want, whatever the ego wants, the ego gets, right? And somebody is stopping him. And a lot of the judges out there are pretty disgusted with our current administration. So that's number two. Number three, I put a what the heck did I write there? Okay. I don't know what number three is because let's talk about Lindsay Halligan and James Comey. James Comey it was indicted by a grand jury, and the indictment was led by a woman who was illegally appointed prosecutor because the real prosecutors who were in the office of the Department of Justice said, this is bogus. We can't do this. Just because he's a Democrat. I don't think he is a Democrat, actually. I think he was a Republican. Just because he went after Trump is not a reason that we can go after him. So, what happened there? She was illegally put in charge. And they pulled some kind of shenanigans. And what happened? He was indicted by a grand jury. But now it has been discovered that not only should she not have been appointed because it was appointed illegally, and not only is this malicious prosecution just because he got on the wrong side of our president, but also Lindsay Halligan, who was very inexperienced and incompetent, did not have a clue, and she made a huge mistake in presenting the indictment. She forgot to write it up properly. There were 2 counts, and she had put in 3, and the grand jury said no to one of them, and she had to do a whole new one, but she didn't do it. She just kind of like removed the other thing, the one that she didn't want, and just put it out there like somebody Xerox something from their class. And now there's a big hullabaloo because it seems that the entire indictment was bogus on that point alone. I mean, and what about, I mean, I have so many examples of things that are just crazy. And let's just talk about the Epstein files for a minute. As we know, the government has been blocking the release of the Epstein files over and over and over and over, and blaming Democrats and blaming Democrats and blaming Democrats. Not to say that there are no Democrats to blame, but putting it all on the Democrats. Well, finally, the truth has come out. The Epstein survivors, the women who had been trafficked and raped as children and young teens, have finally been heard. And the government was forced to listen. Why? Because 4 Republicans joined the Democrats in insisting that Trump release, that the DOJ, actually, Department of Justice, release the Epstein files. And after they, it was looking like they were going to lose. They were going to lose. But it passed. And as we know, the president stopped a new congressperson from New Mexico from getting into the Congress, and he sent them home, and he did everything to stop this from happening, but it finally happened. And then the Senate felt all the pressure, and the Senate Republicans all agreed that Trump has to release the Epstein files. Now, believe me, not all of them really wanted that, but now they didn't want to look bad, right? Because their egos might have, they went, okay. And Trump said that he would sign it, which he finally did tonight. But he's already trying to undo it because the Department of Justice is opening up new investigations into Democrats so that they don't have to release all the Epstein files because of these new investigations. But Chuck Schumer of the Democrats has just tonight put out an amendment saying that they can't do that, and that Pam Bondi is going to have to release the Epstein files. They are, Yahweh said they are releasing redacted files, but they're only supposed to release ones where the names of the victims are redacted. And we know that Pam Bondi is going to try. So it's not like they're done trying. But my point isn't that they're done trying. Oh, yes. And another thing that's happening where is the Affordable Care Act subsidies are going to be expiring. And there's a lot of angry people, including a lot of angry Republicans. And so what is happening is there is a massive defection from President ego. And a lot of them are just doing it for their own, to protect themselves. There's, the Democrats won amazingly in large numbers at the recent elections. So we have some egos in there saying, "Wait a minute, I'm not going to go down with the ship." So they're going down. So they're all there. They're deserting the rat on the ship. And some of them are doing it strictly out of self-preservation. But the interesting thing is that up to this point, those Republicans were too cowardly to stand up to President Ego. And now they realize they're between a rock and a hard place because they don't stand up to President Ego, then they are going to go down with the ship. Yahweh said, I cannot imagine Trump being okay with releasing the files without covering his own ass. Oh, it's not that he's okay, but he may not be able to stop it. If his rats, who have been propping him up all this time, desert the ship, he won't have any cover. He won't be able to do anything about it. Now, how is this going to end? I think it's already kind of falling apart. Now, Trump has been president for less than a year. And the outrage of the treatment of immigrants has also been deafening, that even some of his old friends like Joe Rogan, who is a podcaster on Spotify, who had been supporting him. Joe Rogan even said, oh my God, the treatment of immigrants. The Pope has come out, the Catholic bishops came out yesterday or the day before attacking the president's immigration policy. Question, Yahweh, do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene started the dominoes falling on the MAGA side? That's an interesting question. I don't think that she started it, but I think she sniffed it in the wind. It is very possible that she truly is upset about the treatment of those women, but she has never defended the poor and oppressed before. So she may, in fact, have been totally sincere about the Epstein files. But I think she could feel that he was losing his base, and she had always hitched her star to him. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. I can't say that that's truth. And she certainly helped it. And so did, Senator Massey, and uh, what was it? Lauren Boebert from Colorado. And was it Nancy Mace? I don't remember. Anyway, I have no memory. But no, I think that the tide was turning, and the big turn in the tide was the loss of all those elections only a few weeks ago. So that was like a huge wake up call. And also, people have seen massive demonstrations in the streets. So, what you're seeing is that the opposition to the Trump administration has gotten stronger and stronger, and the support has gotten weaker and weaker. And I think that the fact that so many of his supporters have been hurt by his economic policies, the tariffs and all of that, that there was already a wave coming. And we saw that wave in those elections, but that wave was already coming. So I don't want to exaggerate that there was no ego involved, but the complete runaway ego. I am going to do an executive order and say this, and I'm going to say that, and this disgraceful business of bombing fishing boats in the Caribbean, which is completely illegal, as are so many of the other things that our government is doing now, that we feel like we cringe when we think that they're speaking for us, which they don't. So there has been more and more, and see, guys, it's us. We did it. We have turned this tide. Now, is it going to be the full tide? I'm not saying, because we don't know what's going to replace this, but I can't see Trump continuing. Nevertheless, are we really turning the corner in terms of the ego, that it's all about me, and it's about power, and it's about money, and the corruption of the Trump regime, while people were losing their SNAP benefits, having golden ballrooms? I mean, I almost named this show, You Can't Fool All of the People All of the Time. The expression is, you can fool all of the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And I think that has brought to us to a place where we can start having a conversation about what kind of world we want to live in. And we've seen that people under 30 are actually open to talking about socialism, democratic socialism. Never had it before. Is another comment from it is interesting that the two most Trump supporting women are now standing against his choices. Yes, Green and Boebert. It seemed like they would never have stood against him, yet here they are. Indeed, something in them. You know, all of us know about exploitation of women. All of us know that rape of children is a heinous crime. There is something, I think, stirring in people, but it took everything, all of these people, so many Hispanics. Oh, yes, Congressman Massey. I'm sorry. Thank you, James. Um, my brain is terrible when it comes to details, as I've told you many times. Okay. Um, you see, the problem was that Trump was elected by people who had grudges against somebody, the government or undocumented people or whatever, and thought that their problems were going to be solved by the blowhard who presented himself as God and said he was going to fix everything. And they wanted to believe that. And that's our foolishness. And I talked about that last time about how we create gods and then we worship them. And I mean that about all gods, including the God in the sky. But when you put together a coalition of people based on grudges and hatred and so on, eventually it will turn on itself. I mean, this whole business about Nick Fuentes being totally anti Semitic and being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and then people are saying, how could he have done that? And now some of these people are coming out, they're blatant Nazis. So, I mean, they'll say so. Anyway, I think we have a chance. We have a chance as long as we get beyond, oh, Trump did this and Trump did that and Trump did the other thing, and really talk about when are we going to realize that only by joining together for the common good are we going to have a healthy society. I read recently, you may have read it too, that 40% of young women want to leave the country. And young men don't. So somebody wrote, co-creating the world you want to live in. Yeah. So exactly. So we need to start talking about what we are fighting for. What is our positive vision for the world? And I've been saying this for months, and nobody listens to me. I'm not blaming them. Why should they? I don't seem important. I don't seem to have anything to say to anybody. I don't have the ear. But the truth is, we need to make a move to say what we are fighting for, because this is a moment where everything is tipping. And if we're afraid to do that, then we are going to lose, as we always do, because we can't go back to business as usual. Oh, by the way, federal workers, there was some kind of ruling or movement that he took away the federal workers' rights to unionize, and that's been brought back. I can't even remember how that happened because my memory is terrible. But you can find all this out if you want to. Okay, Trump is still okay. Yahweh said, Trump is still just one man. My biggest issue is with all the supporting leadership that don't have the nerve to stand for what's right, and then with those who say nothing and look away. Well, of course, but that's what I mean. Now those rats are deserting the ship because they think their asses are on the line. Nevertheless, we can start talking about what do we want. Let's think about what's post-Trump? What's post the Republican era? What do the Democrats want to do? Are the Democrats going to go back to the way it was before that made people so angry? Or are the Democrats going to start speaking up for something better? So now let me bring on my panel because I've been talking a long time. Here is Todd Benton. And here is, I think we have somebody missing tonight because of, yes, oh yes, she had something going on. Lizzie couldn't join us tonight. So here
You
we
got the guys only, huh?
Oh, me and the guys. I love it in Yahweh. I tell you. All right. So who would like to
Wait.
share?
This is
Oh,
James.
did I
Chairman
introduce
Hello.
James? I
Hello.
didn't introduce you. I just brought you on. There he is, James. Thank you. All right. Who has something to say?
I'd like to share.
Go for it.
Trump has been able to get away with so much because he has been able to make people afraid of him. The Republicans in the Congress are afraid of him organizing the MAGA and throwing them out of office if they don't toe the line. And that fear is getting less and less, I think, because all these women who have come forward and said, we're insisting that this man have to release those records, etc., the Epstein files. And it's wonderful to see how they collectively supported one another in the face of the fear of the powerful and the wealthy.
Exactly.
They were afraid individually, they were scared to death. On all these years, so many of them were either bought off or scared off. Now they've come together and they're not as so afraid and they have the courage. And so they're tipping the scales by coming together and having greater solidarity. And the ego run amok. Look what's happened recently with the SNAP food for people. Trump's administration was opposing those people who were on SNAP getting their full SNAPs. They were fighting them in court to stop them from getting their full share. What the people were going hungry. Meanwhile, the ego is having a grand finale, not a finale, a
Ballroom.
grand to-do, and the big ballroom.
Oh, his gala.
His gala, his gala. Millions of dollars, and the guy's also got a slush fund of over $1 million for playing golf, if you believe it, while people are going hungry. So this is the ego run amok, but now there's more and more countervailing force coming to hold him and his minions accountable. And that's what's been missing, accountability. And also what's been missing is this mutual support, which now the women are demonstrating and more people are demonstrating, just as millions of people have been demonstrating on these No Kings rallies. And the congressmen are looking at that and saying, hey, if we want to get reelected, if we want to have our own survival, we got to start distancing ourselves from Trump and so on. By the way, I could also identify with how the ego in my life has played such a big role. I can remember when I first went to law school, I wanted to become a tax attorney so I could help the wealthy pay the lowest possible taxes. Wow. Luckily, by the time I graduated, I wanted to help the poor, have justice for the poor, and I joined the legal services program for the poor. But wow, my ego was run amok, and I was able to make a change. And of course, even today, of course, I still have a lot of ego, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to take accountability, and I'm trying to make sure about what kind of impact am I having on other people in my life. And that's what's needed in our society as a whole. Look at ICE. They have no accountability. They're running amok. They have masks on. They have no badges. They kidnap people. But more and more courts are starting to curtail their activities and the ability to put military against American citizens. So more and more we're starting to hold these egoic actions accountable. because the people are upset about it, and we're more and more doing something about it.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important um, that we look at how the ego is the same, because the ego that says it's all about me, it has frightened us, has ruled by fear, says, oh, if you start thinking about other people, then what's going to happen to you? See, has been no belief, and Yahweh said everything in moderation, especially ego. I I understand what you mean. I would put it a different way. Don't let the ego dominate. And that's what we've got. You see, when your ego says to you, you can't worry about your neighbor, what's going to happen to you? Uh, you've got to get the scholarship. You've got to win the football game. You've got to this. You've got to get the best husband. You've got to get the most wealthy job. All of that stuff, the ego frightens us and says, because if you don't do that, then you're going to lose. And if you lose, if you don't have any power, you're going to be smashed and you're going to be poor. And, nobody wants to be poor in this society or smashed. But you see, there is a different way of looking at that. It's like saying, no, you're wrong. I am safe when everyone is safe. Do you feel safer since ICE has been going through the country, or we send the National Guard in, or we start bombing people, or millions of people are being, their lives are being ruined? Do you feel any safer now than you did before? No, nobody feels safer, actually, because the whole energy is built based on fear. And just like James was saying, Trump was always threatening everybody. And so nobody felt safe. The truth is that we need to take care of ourselves, but we need to start to understand that in order to take care of ourselves, we have to take care of the whole. For example, climate change, right? You can't fix climate change in your one little house, block, or even community, because what is happening to the climate is happening internationally, and it's coming to get everybody. Look how many wealthy people have lost their the value of their homes in Florida. Yeah, and that's not the only place. So this whole notion that the ego keeps us safe is wrong. We need awareness. We need to see what we need also. But we call it, what we do in our organization when we're trying to make a decision is we check in with the higher consciousness and we say, is it for the highest good of all, including me, to do this or that or the other thing? The highest good of all must include me, but it's the highest good. I would much rather live in a world that's peaceful and loving than get 3 more televisions. What about you?
I'm with you, Beth.
Or
Yeah, because what you were talking about there at the end of your talk was, what's the future after Trump? What are we building? What future do we want? Not going back to the whole problem that got us into this mess is not taking care of people in the earth. I mean, that is what got us in this mess. If the Democratic Party was actually, helping people for real and not being tied up with the billionaires just like the Republicans were, then we might have a different situation right now. But so that to me is, we need a vision of what we stand for, and it needs to be articulated either by the Democratic Party or someone else. I mean, I know AOC has been talking about this in the emails I get from her. She's been saying, okay, we can't just fight Trump, we have to fight for, and it's exactly what you're saying also, we have to understand, what are we fighting for? What is that future that we want to live in? And that's what gets me fired up. I mean, I'm glad that the tide seems to be turning, that the ego is not in charge, but we need to put the pedal to the metal on what do we stand for in that world of, the highest good of all of us.
absolutely. in our new Declaration of Independence, which we put out months ago and hasn't gotten a lot of signatures, but some people, we talk about stopping, the tyranny of the government, and that's the American Revolution.
Mhm.
Is, when the government gets in the way of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you get rid of it. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is get rid of this regime. But what is beyond that, in our new Declaration of Independence, we talk about what we're fighting for. We're talking about economic equality. We're talking about getting big money out of politics. We're talking about, we support the democratization of the economy, because unless we do that, we are still going to be stuck, because we have these billionaires who are making egoically based decisions what's going to make them wealthy. Then they control everything, and they're buying up the media. I mean, we're not out of the woods yet, because
Mhm.
Trump may fall, but he's kind of a foolish old man. But there's people who are smarter than he is, who are still trying to pull all the strings. So Yahweh says we cannot let that stop us from doing our part, though. I think he's talking about fear or feeling weak. We cannot step aside. We cannot set trying aside just because my little effort won't fix it. No, and that's what we're talking about, coming together, because it's our efforts that's making the difference. And then Yahweh said, great point, Tide, fighting for is stronger than fighting against. And that's what we've been talking about. Our vision is to fight for something, and people are too scared to say what they want to fight for, because somebody's going to say, oh, you're a socialist. Trump calls everybody a left lunatic, including Judge Boasberg, who was appointed by Bush. So, one of those, and some of the Reagan appointees who were obviously left lunatics. And, but,
Even some of the
labels,
people he's appointed.
I know, even they've come against him, because there's some small semblance of people getting it, that this is evil and we can't build a society based on it. But like we're saying, we want more. Yes, James.
Yes, I think part of our vision for the future that we talked about is the potluck revolution. Instead of having this oligarchy of billionaires running things from the top and having huge income inequality, set it up to where everybody contributes what they're able to, and everybody receives what they need. That's the potluck principle.
That's right. And that is exactly what we are fighting for. And in addition to that, we are fighting for a spiritual awakening, where we are taught not morality that came out of some book that somebody wrote and is forcing people to agree to, like, oh, the Bible says so, but something that is based on true spirituality, which is based on the recognition that we are all one, and that we are all connected. And, you can't be unhappy. I mean, you can't be happy when other people are unhappy. You really can't. You can try, but it's not going to happen. People, all these wealthy people who use drugs and drink and, go through orgies of making money, are they happy? I don't think they would be doing what they're doing if they were. They're not well. They're just as sick as the rest of this society. So we have to have economic equality, and we have to have political opportunities, and there's way more that we can say about that, and we need a potluck revolution, but we also at the same time need an inner revolution where we overturn the domination of the ego that says the only way up is over somebody else's dead body. And let me tell you, that's what capitalism is all about. And I've spoken about that in other shows, but I try to keep it a little bit short. Yahweh says, one big issue with following one book's rules is you start believing that it is the only way. Exactly. There becomes no room for growth or change. Absolutely. And this is the moment we have to seize the time to start to think critically. In other words, to start to think instead of just following what we've been conditioned to believe. So I'm going to shut up because I try not to go on too long in any show, and so that you'll come back next week. And
Thanks for joining us, Yahweh, and engaging with us. That was great.
yeah, we loved it. We really loved it. Thank you. And thanks to our guys for having kept this discussion alive. And who knows what is going to happen by next week.
Right.
So with that, I said, could you give us a love or a like on Facebook? Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Oh, Yahweh said it was a pleasure. You're one of us. Yeah, that's the way I feel about you. And subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on my public page, Beth Green, The Music and the Message. And come back on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. for our music, Magical Improvs, where James and I improvise together. And it's like, cool down. Okay. Love to you all. And now I am going to play the music. Where is it? And take you out till next week.